Okay, prepare yourself for some horrible. Um, I wanted to show this little board that I ordered off of Amazon, and it is sold by Makerfocus. Um, here's the actual. Yep, here's the actual place that I purchased it, and what they don't mention here is that it has 32 megabits of SPI flash, which I think is good for people that do the Pythoning. But for 14 bucks, you get a display and you get um, a battery charging circuit, although I'm having trouble finding it, and you get some basic code to get you going. They've actually got some installation instructions and a few examples. I think in many cases you can just run the normal ESP8266 IDE, or run normal code or whatever. But like if you want the header files for the uh, oop, oop, oh, we've gone off the rails. And we're off the rails. Oh yeah, if you want some examples, here they've actually got installation instructions, which I roughly followed these, and just reviewed some of these things before I ran them. But yeah, so I got up and running, and here's the board itself, which I was actually. I guess I like that this USB connection is real solid. It looks like I can manhandle that, and it's not gonna rip off traces on the board because it's anchored pretty solid. Um, I'm guessing up here the closest thing I could find to these little J6 dudes uh, is that they were uh, transistors, which I don't know. That's not a lot to go on, but I was searching for regulators, and I think I ended up finding, yeah, these guys, which are actually transistor triodes. Uh-huh. And then we've got a 5 volt and a 3 volt rail, so I'm guessing that these are both regulators. So um, anyway, here's a look at the board, and you got their labeling on the top and this decent little OLED display, a decent little connector, reset and program buttons, and on the bottom of the board there's a WinBond chip, which that is a 32 megabit chip. Um, this is the whoops. This is the yeah, this W25Q. Is that what this guy was? 32 JV. There you go. 32 megabit. Which I think is good for if you do the Python. Um, you'll have plenty of the RAMs to compile and run your Python code. So I may actually fool around with Python. That's something I haven't really done. And then the serial controller is the SI logic 2104. That's no big deal. And then the ESP package itself, Heltec seems to integrate that into the board. They don't use like one of these pre whatever cans. So it's not going to be FCC certified, but that doesn't bother me. But what I don't really see here is how the charging is going to work on the battery. So I'm feeling a little a little dense here. If anybody would care to chime in, I would like to understand that better, because I had a lot of trouble finding these chips. So it's entirely possible I have completely gotten this wrong, but anyway, there's a look at the board. And yeah, so let's talk about, I guess, my intended purpose. Is my plan is to put a physical button in my vehicle to replace my pulling out of my phone to work some lights. So kind of the idea is that I think it would be nice to just have physical buttons, and then I can basically work them. That's my front door. This is tied to my kitchen right now. And that way I don't have to whip out my phone when I'm coming down the driveway. As an example, like here's my phone, and like normally I would hit this kitchen button or the front door or the overhead garage lights, and eventually I want to get my door operator in there as well. But yeah, I think step one is just get a physical button that maintains state, and that way I don't have to, right? So most of the time I won't have to fool with anything, and then this guy should theoretically just let me tear out the battery, and basically he'll boot as soon as he sees my Wi-Fi and sees my MQTT. It should honor whatever position the switch is in. So I guess the switch is actually off. Herp derp. Yeah. Anyway, that's the idea. Get rid of the phone. Don't be looking at the phone when you're driving your vehicle. So I can do a quick review, I guess, of the basic block of code that I think is important. I struggled a bit with the pins that I was going to use, and I initially just set them for outputs and was toggling them with this little toggler that is happening right now. You can see that 1 and 0, and ran into loads of trouble. I think the first place that I hit, and I don't know what people do normally to figure this crap out, but I think my instincts were to use D0, because every example just about used D0. Sure enough, that was running the OLED reset, so that totally wasn't going to work. And then I just started going through these pins, which this one interfered with the OLED as well. D3 works. D8 did not work, and I have a feeling I need to study up. This should be the actual ESP8266 pin number, which I think is really what I care about. I need to see why it's shared. And then D7 works, and then there's probably some others as well, as like an analog input. So I think I still have an issue though, where when I'm using I can't remember if it was D3 or D7, but when the thing boots, here I can actually just show you. If I ground both of these out, so that guy's grounded, That guy's grounded. These should both be 0 right now. What the hell is going on here? Okay. What happened? Oh, I pulled it off. All right. There we go. So they're both turned off. So watch what happens during boot. That pin is obviously used for something because it's not going to boot. And this blue guy, let's see. Blue guy, which we just plugged in, is going to D3. So if I let that float or don't ground it, the only thing I'm doing in code is setting the pull-up resistor. Yeah, so now it boots. So I'm probably still going to have to choose another pin and figure out why also that pin didn't work. But anyway, this is me trying to learn how to ESP8266 again. But yeah, so the main block of code though, I use their examples and their OLED header file to get the stuff working. It's not very full featured. You know, like you can't invert it. You can pretty much clear it, and like there's just a few public classes that it does. So I think mostly text. I haven't messed enough with other OLED stuff to know, you know, to really miss it. But and then personally, in some of the MQTT examples, I need to figure out how to use this callback better, since I don't know what topic is going to be returned if I subscribe to it. I don't know if I set up, like, I don't know how to do structs with dynamic names, like if I do key value pairs and iterate through that, or how that's supposed to work in C. I'm a bad programmer, but the basic loop here, I probably overthought this way too much. But the way I'm gonna read this is if we're connected to Wi-Fi, which means my Wi-Fi, and if we're connected to the client successfully, which would be the MQTT client or server, then in this loop we will enter this portion, which every 600 milliseconds we'll go ahead and read the state of the pin, and we'll compare it to the stored state of the switch or the door or whatever we're reading. And then if it differs, we go ahead and toggle it, since we just use a 1 or 0. And then here we're just publishing the result of that. So this should rate limit my publishing, and it should also deal with any need for debounce or stuff like that in the switch. So this is kind of why I ended up doing it this way. And I figure that once I get that callback working, I'll update switch state, and that way I'll do the comparison. Really, I'll be doing the comparison against the stored value in MQTT. I persist when I write to MQTT, and that way if a client requests, you can get the current or latest message, and that way my car should successfully just correct the state of the light, and then of course once you cut the car off, it'll stop doing that. So it shouldn't be irritating, but there's obviously no further fanciness to this code. It's just mostly hard-coded stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the flow. And then pretty much same deal here. I'm just printing out the stuff to the screen. So yeah, I like this chip. As a result of messing with it, I ended up also ordering, sort of as a thank you, I guess, to to Makerfocus, because even though they didn't design this chip, they did put the links up and stuff like that. But I ordered this other little dude that is being sold as a Raspberry Pi sort of ups like thing, and I think I'll give it a fail. It provides 5 volts and 3.1 volt outputs. It does charge a battery. We'll get a look. Yeah, so here's the business end of the board. This little USB dude, I'm gonna rip that off. You can see it's just secured using the little bit of, it's not beefy enough. I'm gonna rip that thing off. But what is happening with this board is when I initially tested it, I put in a quality Canadian cell that was like right at 3 volts. So it's right on the cusp of being deadish, and it's actually, this appears to cut off at 3 volts. But with the battery in and running the Pi and giving this input, the battery voltage sinks, and it in other words, the charging doesn't keep up with the charging and the demand of the Pi. If you unplug the Pi, it will charge the battery, and in fact it cut off properly and turned this little light green, and everything was merry. But as soon as you plug the Pi back in and it's sourcing power here, the battery begins to sag, and within 24 hours you've gone from 4.2 volts down to about 3.8 volts, and I'm not convinced that it's ever going, it's not going to recover. So that was a little bit weird, because I saw the whole thing using about 600 milliamps, and I basically monitored it using this little dude, which right now we're just pulling that that Heltec chip. I'm gonna plug in the battery charger on this guy, and you can see maybe that the light came on right here, and now we're pulling 200 milliamps. So that's believable. A Pi on its own pulls like 200 milliamps, and the hello. I mean, I think you guys have probably already gotten the point, but yeah, so we're pulling 1 to 200 milliamps. This thing with a battery installed and running the Pi was pulling 600 milliamps, and the battery was losing. We were losing. It was sinking. Oh look, there's some pretty serious pull right there. Yeah, so there's just not enough headroom in the charger to actually charge this battery. This is a Moly cell. I think it's a 2400 milliamp hour cell. And yeah, I was losing. So maybe for much smaller projects, this would be cool. Or if you need 3 volts and 5 volts, battery backed. But for a Pi, it's not going to, at least in my experience, it's not going to actually run. It's going to lose. So yeah, that was that. And then I also ordered some more of these displays. I've used dudes like this in the past, and I think like with one of these, and Amazon had 3 for $9, which I think is a pretty good deal. I don't know how to, like, this is, oh, this is one time. but it says 3 time. Huh. Weird. That's weird. So now they're saying 1 LED for $5. I got 3 for $9.99. And in fact, this is where I linked from my cart. So what the hell, Amazon? And it says 3 right here. So I'm a little confused. But anyway, I scored 3 of those. I also grabbed I grabbed some of these little dudes since I'm doing some playing again, and last time I did this to dev on this little board. So I got some stuff to be able to breadboard these little tiny ESP chips, and then I got 2 ESP32 chips. I think these came from Makerfocus as well, and I haven't done any real testing yet. But this is, I guess, a WeMOS WeMOS. I don't know, but this is a Room 32 ESP32 can, and yeah, I just figured this would be cool to do development on. But here's a quick look at it for anybody that likes that sort of stuff. Focus. And then this came with a battery connector, so that was cool. Seems like it's got a decent connector for the USB also. So this just seems like a decent little dude. That guy looks pretty beefy. And then I don't know where I put the other ESP32 that I got, but I wanna do some Bluetooth stuff, some BLE Bluetooth, and then I'm probably gonna actually switch back to doing to writing Lua for some of the stuff. I want to see, since C is giving me a little bit of an issue. I mean, I don't know, and I couldn't get Make working. I may just also try some Lua. So anyway, that's my plan, and I've got lots of thoughts on the automation of the vehicle. I think it'll be super sweet to know when my vehicle has powered up. And I can envision not only the convenience of having a switch to turn on lights or open up my garage door, but some of the other automation that potentially I could do is, if the vehicle lights are on, then just have this thing go ahead and turn the outside lights on. Or maybe when you are in your garage and you turn the ignition on, the garage door can start opening. Also, I'll probably, when I hack up my garage operators, I'll assign a vehicle to the bay, and then the vehicle itself will just make a request for its door to open. So you don't have to, deal with like bay numbers or whatever. You just assign that in the garage, and stuff like that. So there's also, what is it? The stereo, the little stereo connection that you use to run dimmers in stereo equipment. I figure I could use that as well to just figure out if the lights are on, that sort of stuff. So the main questions are, I've never worked with things like this in a really noisy 12 volt bus environment. I'm going to be, either, I don't know if I'm going to use like a resistor divider to operate input on this stuff, or if I'll use I don't know what I'm going to use to interface with the vehicle stuff, but I anticipate it being really noisy also. So yeah, I'm looking for, I guess I'm gonna go looking for those type projects, and or if anybody has any recommendations of what to look at next, that would be really cool. But as far as this little Makerfocus chip goes, like I don't see any issue with it. I'm probably gonna get a few more of these, and I think even at $14, with the exception of I don't know how this battery is being charged, I think there's a lot of value at $14. But I would love to know other people's opinions, and perhaps you spotted something that I didn't spot, because certainly I'm not the sharpest tack in the hammer drawer. I don't know where tacks are stored. That's it, man. Just wanted to sort of throw out there what I decided to work on this weekend, and end of the thing. I hope everybody's good.